pretty good.
There you go, Ernie.
All right. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to get right to business because we only have so much time and so much of this person's time. So, Mike, welcome back.
Hello.
You survived the Brugger's drive-thru.
It was horrible.
Yes, horrible. There's three of us here today, so we're going to get right into it. Emily Blomme from Foundation 2,
Yes.
Executive Director, right? Those are big words for me. Thank you for joining us and wearing a...
Thank you for having me and
Yes.
letting me wear this amazingly cool headset.
I was going to say, you know, everybody gets to be Bobby Brown for a day.
Right.
I've always wanted to be Bobby
Except for
Brown.
me.
Well, that's right.
I don't
You
ever get
I
to
know,
be
but I
Bobby
like
Brown.
you have to remember the fist away rule.
Yeah, I like that rule.
Fist
That's
away.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't decide if I'm more like the drive-through or like a helicopter pilot.
Helicopter
Yes.
pilot.
Like I
I'll
can't
always,
decide who
always
I'm
be a
trying to,
helicopter
like,
pilot.
Yeah.
embody.
If you don't know what you're doing, look cool,
That's
right?
right. If you don't know what you're doing, look cool.
Perfect.
Yes.
My day's complete.
Isn't that a Special Forces thing?
It's rule number 3.
Oh, yes. All right. Okay. So, yes, I'm glad to have you here, and we can make each other laugh. But let's talk about serious things. First of all, Foundation 2.
Foundation
For
2.
let's say you're talking to a new group of people or CVO people out there. What is
Sure.
Foundation 2?
So Foundation 2 is a nonprofit located in Cedar Rapids. We serve, depending on the service, we serve some counties, some communities up to statewide. We have about 95 employees. We've been in the community for 45 years, and we have 4 major programs. So we have crisis phone, chat, and text services. We take about 30,000 calls a year. People who are in crisis for all sorts of reasons. It could be that there's a death of someone they care about. It could be that they're struggling with teenagers that are living in their home, they lost their job, a diagnosis, whatever's going on with them, their coping skills no longer can handle the crisis, and so they call, they reach out for help, and so that's kind of one program. We have mobile crisis outreach, which is similar services, but it's our We Come to You service. We serve 8 counties. We dispatch in teams of 2, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We work closely with law enforcement, with hospitals. We show up at residences, employers, really work to de-escalate situations, stabilize. We do a suicide assessment for both crisis phone, chat, and text, and mobile crisis on 100% of the people that we come into contact with. We do about 200 dispatches a month. It's growing fast. Third program, we have an emergency shelter for youth. It's located over on 12th. We have 17 beds. Part of those beds are court-ordered beds for Department of Human Services and Juvenile Court Services. The other part are for runaway and homeless youth. Again, work closely with law enforcement on that. And then our last program is a case management program for kids that age out of the foster care system. So essentially, our staff teach them basic skills that, maybe parents would have taught. How do you job seeking stuff, resumes, how do you interview, but also some kids it's how do you make a meal, how do you do laundry, some of that type of stuff.
Things we take for granted.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think kids that some kids that grew up in the foster care system, have it much better than they would have had they stayed in an unsafe place at home. Some kids, it's really tough. So I think depending on the kiddo, depending on their needs, we get them what we can. So those are the main pieces. Kind of the thread that runs through all of that is our suicide prevention stuff. We have been doing suicide intervention and response work for 45 years. That's how the crisis line originally started. We do assessments, we do trainings in the community, we respond to suicides for communities that need support. There was a recent suicide in Blomme that was really traumatic for that community, and we were able to have staff out there to provide support, but then also kind of do some community conversations about suicide. It's a scary thing for people to talk about if you don't do it every day. So talked a lot about, kind of what do you do as a community, signs and symptoms, that kind of stuff. So
you go to businesses and do that if they ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have gone into some employers, particularly when you look at businesses that are laying people off, or if there's, like a lot of businesses have EAP programs, the emergency like support for, like Mercy has the EAP program, employee assistance program, and that's usually where, like, hey, I'm having an issue at work, I'm going to go see a counselor, and I get 4 sessions to go and see a counselor. This is more of like some training on signs and symptoms for employers.
Sure.
What would they need to know? What should they be able to recognize? What do they do if they think someone's really struggling with their mental health issues? Kind of what's their responsibility to their employers? And then definitely we've gone into to employers and businesses when someone dies by suicide or even just kind of a sudden death. Maybe there's a team of people who work closely together, someone dies. It's kind of hard. What do you say to people? What do you do?
Yeah.
And so being able to provide some support and guidance to people who just don't deal with this stuff every day, because honestly, we deal with it every single day.
I was going to say most people, even some that, even though I've been talking somewhat about this, very little about this, but some on my website, whatever, Facebook page. That's the thing. It's like there's a lot of suicide right here in Lynn County. Cedar
Yes.
Rapids, Lynn County, way
Yes.
more than people would realize.
So I was going to ask, do you have a sense, or how many people do you contact, like on a weekly basis, for this subject?
Well, I mean, if we were to look at the number of calls that we would get on a weekly basis, and not every call is about suicide,
Sure.
but I think if we look at, we're talking hundreds a week, if we're talking about people who themselves feel suicidal, someone who cares about someone who's concerned about, are they suicidal, or is there a significant mental health issue, or an employer. I mean, those kind of, if we were to kind of put all of that together, people who are suicidal and struggling with their own mental health, people who care about people who are suicidal and struggling with mental health, we're talking hundreds easily, if not thousands. It just depends on the week. And, we've looked, suicide sometimes goes in kind of clumps throughout the year. You would think that winter, for example, would be really horrible for people, and you would see more suicides in the winter. But sometimes we see them more in the spring when there's this sense of renewal and things are growing and it's warming up, and people can they can use weather as an explanation of why they feel really why they feel really crappy.
She was going to say shitty.
She's going to say shitty. We have dropped our first shitty bomb.
We've never had anybody swear on this show
I know.
before.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's
Nick
terrible.
Maybanks. He swore. I was so
He did.
happy.
Oh my gosh!
So happy.
I want to be in the Nick Maybanks camp.
You are, and you're sitting in his chair. Oh, so
I hope he's watching.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just
he
had
was.
to
No,
put that.
that's okay.
He was the first guest, and he said it, and I was like, wait a minute, he just swear?
So I do need to keep my mouth in check when I talk about things I'm really passionate about.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I
understand. Yeah.
Only for
sometimes
your
I-
version you do, not for our version. I understand you. When you are an executive director, you have to answer to some people. Me and Mike, we just have to answer to basically the bathroom. Who eats most?
Yeah.
Other than that,
I do
nobody.
have to answer to people, but I also think that I tell myself the story that I'm well respected because I'm passionate about the work
Yes,
I do, and
sure.
if that means that I drop, the word
shitty bomb.
shitty, then so be it. So I think that weather allows people to say, I feel bad because it's cold out. I feel bad because the days are dark, the sun's not shining, that kind of thing. But when everyone else is like, yes, spring is here and I feel so great, and they're like,
No.
crap, I still feel bad.
Yeah.
It's a reminder to them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how we get as many people as we can. Tell me about the duck race and what you're raising money for and how that works.
Yes.
Because I want to lean on the CVO peeps out there. Peeps,
Yeah.
ducks, chicks, what? But how could they help?
So,
And they might win like $10,000, right?
absolutely. So I am a member of Daybreak Rotary.
Yes.
Rotary does a lot of different things in the community, but Daybreak Rotary is the one that I am a part of. Best happy hour of the week, Friday morning, 7 a.m.,
Wow.
which is exciting. So the duck race is the one fundraising event that Daybreak Rotary has. It's super fun. We go out and sell ducks.
Mm-hmm.
The ducks all have a little number on the bottom. They're like little rubber ducks.
Sure. I've seen them floating down the river.
And then we used to drop them in the river. There was some issues with that.
Yeah, EPA, I don't know.
So
whatever.
so now we make a man-made river. We put the ducks in the river, the ducks go down.
What's the world coming to when we can't pour rubber ducks in the river?
I don't know.
Choking hazards for Labradors somewhere down in.
Hey, now.
Let's be nice.
No, I mean there had to be a reason why they came out and said this could like.
They probably lost a few.
All right,
So
I'll get back on track.
That's okay. So, so Foundation 2 is incredibly fortunate to be a beneficiary of the duck race. So the duck race usually raises, I don't know, $65,000-ish, and Foundation 2 will get 10% of that for our youth shelter.
Awesome.
Which is super exciting because we have kids that have needs. I mean, you have kids that show up with nothing. We recently had a runaway 13-year-old who's been out for over a year, on her own,
Sure.
shows up with nothing. Like, we need to make sure she has clothes. We need to make sure, we're trying to get her back to where she is,
Hey, by the way, because some
Yeah.
people don't know,
Oh.
Mike's in law enforcement, so he's
Oh.
familiar with that. But just to remind some people, and he's paramedic / EMS / superhero. So
I was going to say Superman.
Superman.
How do I get my superhero status?
Yeah, you go.
You just have to go buy a shirt.
Yeah, you buy a shirt. I only interrupted you because let's go back and so some people actually grasp this. Are your beds full?
Our bed's full. I don't know if our beds are full today, but our beds are full often.
Yes. Like this isn't a rarity.
No.
It isn't like we got a 13-year-old and she's there by herself.
No. So we have 17 beds.
Sure.
We have some of those beds are law enforcement beds. So we might have police or sheriff's office from a variety of counties that bring kids in.
Yep.
They might stay with us a day and a half. Then they might go back home. They might go to a relative. My philosophy, our agency philosophy is the safest, least restrictive level of care.
Yeah.
So we don't want kids to not be at home unless home is not a good place for them to be.
Sure.
But we also don't want kids to be living in a group home if they can live with a relative who can keep them safe and give them, meet all their basic needs and that type of thing. So I know that if earlier this week, I think we were at 9 court-ordered beds, 4 runaway beds, and then I think we had 2 law enforcement beds. So are they constantly packed at 17? Do we have a waiting list? No. But we are not like a residential group facility like Four Oaks. They do residential group homes, like good. That is great. That is not the business that we want to be in. We do short-term stays, crisis stays.
Sure.
So the goal is to get them in, get them the needs that they, meet their needs, get them what they need, figure that out, and get them back into the community as quickly as possible.
Sure.
Because, no one wants. I mean, it's a great facility, but I don't want anyone living there.
Sure.
So, so duck race benefits that. So we need to sell about 1,000 ducks.
Yeah.
And
I bought like how many did I buy?
28.
I bought $100 worth.
$100 is 28 ducks.
Yeah.
So and the good news is if people like the money. There's a little bit of a misconception out there. So it's not like if everyone were to buy ducks from us and we just got to keep that money, I think we'd make about $4,200.
Yeah.
But we're going to make more by selling all these
Because you
ducks.
get the 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Sure.
if you want to see me make a fool of myself, I am the duck mascot.
All right.
Super secret. No one's
Really?
supposed to know who a mascot is. Don't
Have you
tell
ever done
anybody.
it
Don't tell
before?
anybody. I did it last year.
You're-
It's very warm in the
Yes.
duck costume. Lucky.
Yep.
However, at the farmers market this weekend,
Is that the past weekend?
There
'cause
was
Memorial. Yes.
There was one last weekend. There's
Yeah.
one this weekend.
You walked around in that? during
Well,
the farmer's
last
market?
weekend. No, on Saturday I am. This coming. So I'm doing my part to sell ducks. I'm pleading to the
Yes.
camera.
She could say that because we only have 18 people watching
Yeah,
right
we
now.
could- yeah, there'll be 1,000
Come
later.
on, people.
Come on,
Yeah.
people, buy ducks.
Yes.
So the link. Do we have a duck link up there?
Well,
There
we
is.
do have
Yep.
this.
Yep.
Yes.
So the link is super easy.
A quack pack. Oh, my God.
Yeah. And I'm guessing if you click on more, could you click on more for me under the, so yep.
I like how
yep.
demanding she is already.
So
Yeah.
that,
Shane, make it
that
happen.
link right there, yep,
at
that's the
that.
one.
Even more.
Oh, more?
That
less.
that's
More?
6,009. That's the link right there.
Okay.
So we can do something with that. So
Okay.
it's not tons of money to buy ducks, but it really
No.
goes to a good cause. And the other things, just a side note, it's also going to Youthport. which is great, that's the partnership between Young Parents Network, Tanager Place, and Boys and Girls Club, and it also goes to Big Brother, Big Sister.
It's very good.
Very
yes.
good.
Yeah, I think after our last podcast, I got some ducks.
Did you?
I can't remember how many, but I got some.
That's all right. You could win. It only takes one to win.
One duck to
winning.
win.
Let's talk about winning. You
Yes.
could win. In addition to helping us,
Yeah.
you could win $10,000, which would be super exciting. There's also, I think, 12-ish other prizes, things like
If I win 10 grand from the duck race, I'll do something epic with it.
like donate it to Foundation 2.
We'll turn around and do something.
Yes.
No, I mean, I'll even do something more epic. Like, maybe we'll go buy a motorcycle that we raffle off to get you like 50 grand.
That'd be super.
I could raffle off a motorcycle. Somebody to help us out. We'll go buy
I'm
a $10,000
surprised you didn't say you were
Harley.
going to go buy guns with it.
No, we got enough guns. We got like 3, 4 guns. We're good.
3, 4.
Okay. So that's duck race.
All right. Awesome.
Yes.
Let's talk about, what else do you need to talk about? So we tell the world about you before I start asking you questions, and you're like, you didn't tell me you were going to ask that.
Well, you
So-
can ask me anything you want.
All
I
right.
don't guarantee a good answer.
No, okay. How about this? In general, let's tell the world about me and you. Why are you here? Yeah. Why are you here? How do we help each other?
I am here because I was asked to be here because
Well, now you make it seem like it's all about me.
you believe I have value. What I appreciate about you is I feel like there's a good partnership here.
Sure.
In the world of suicide. So when I think about what I know about suicide, and when I think about what I know about suicide as it relates to guns, the majority of suicides
Our firearms.
are firearms.
Yes.
In part because people have a significant people who die by suicide using guns typically have a large comfort with guns. It's something that they know.
Absolutely.
People do not typically kill themselves with a method that they are not comfortable with. That's part of how people decide. My biggest concern about guns in particular is that suicide is typically impulsive. And when I say that, I mean people think about suicide
Sure.
constantly.
Sure.
People could have suicidal ideation, have suicidal behavior constantly. But the actual time from when someone makes a decision to end their life and they attempt suicide, over 70% of the time, I believe it's less than an hour.
Sure. Small window.
Small window. So if someone has access to a gun during a small window, the likelihood that they'll die by suicide is incredibly high.
Sure.
If they cannot find a gun, and that's their method of choice, and they can make it through a suicidal crisis by calling a friend, calling a crisis line,
Sure.
just tolerating pain, whatever, the likelihood that they'll survive is incredibly high.
Sure.
And so my partnership with you really started because for me, suicide is not a Second Amendment issue. It's not a hey, we should go and lobby issue. It's a gun ownership issue. I do not own guns.
Yep.
We've talked about.
Sure.
I have
You're like blah, don't care.
I have a natural discomfort around guns. I've
Yeah.
I've shot a couple guns. The first time I shot a gun, I shot a 12 gauge. It gave me a black eye because the person who was with me didn't help me
We
any.
call them ass clowns.
Yeah.
But keep
I was
going.
going to say, that is a
Perfect.
typical,
Yep.
hey, let's, oh, God,
Yep.
I hate that anyway.
Let's go for a motorcycle ride, and I'll ride a wheelie with you the first time.
Yeah.
So,
And then the second time I was out and it was much better and I felt like I learned stuff, but it was not enjoyable to me.
Sure.
That doesn't mean in the future it wouldn't be, but
in the future, you're definitely going to go training. We've talked about that.
you have talked about that.
No, you.
Let's be honest, Ernie.
You were told what you needed to do by someone else, not by me.
What I was told is that taking a gun safety class would help people who own guns have a greater respect for the things that come out of my mouth when I talk about guns. Because I feel like I'm in a difficult situation. I want to talk about safe storage of guns,
Sure.
but I don't own guns and I don't.
That's what you have us
These are
for.
both very sensitive issues, right? Suicide and gun. People are very protective of both or very emotional
Yes.
about both things.
We've already made some people mad about it. I don't care. Do we care, Mike?
I don't really
We
care.
really don't care.
I got people right now on our
Thing?
making comments about
gosh.
how fantastic this is. So that's more important to me.
Oh, I love that.
So,
Yay.
Okay, I'm going to lead her down some rabbit holes then. Here we go.
Wait,
It's
I want to, before you go, I want to
taking over the show
I just want to
already.
finish what I was saying.
Go.
So what matters to me is that I don't think any of us necessarily know exactly how people are feeling that live in our homes.
Sure.
Our spouses, our children, people who visit our homes, we don't know. Because suicide is an impulse, I think part of the issue is if your guns aren't stored safely, people who shouldn't have access to them have access to them. You don't always know that when I have 3 teenagers.
Sure.
My boys are 15 and 16.
You deal with drama.
They both have girlfriends. If one of those relationships were to end, it could easily feel like the end of the world to them.
Oh, it does. Sure.
Is it? No. Do we as adults know that when relationships end, it's not the end of the world? Absolutely, especially as
Unless
teenagers.
It's with chocolate. You talked about the fears of going without chocolate.
It's bad.
Okay.
But because we can't anticipate that, if we just say, well, my son is really comfortable with guns, so it's really okay, it doesn't have to be stored safely, I feel like we're putting people at risk.
It sounds like you were in my kitchen 3 weeks ago because I had this talk with my son, and we'll go into better detail of that later, but that's exactly the issue. My son, we had he's 18, he's a man now, and he's like, do you regret letting me have access to the guns? Because I grew up, I trained my kids, and people, that sounds weird. I trained my kids to know how to use the guns, never forced them into it, and actually, quite honestly, people would say, I can't believe your kids, never go shooting. I never, because it was a passion for me, never made them do it. I just made them know everything about them.
Sure.
In case they needed them. Never had an issue, but it's interesting you say, we were just talking about the other day, my son, who doesn't listen to this show, so I can say what I want. He had a very long relationship with a girl, and like you said, go through breakups, it's sad, and I told him later, I said, hey, how many times have I gone through the house and found a bad guy? Only once ever. Most people never do. How many times have I gone through my house and found you and your friend sneaking back in at 2 a.m. or just trying to be quiet? Because kids now, when they're like, hey, can Billy sleep over? They don't come over till 1 a.m. That's normal. So my whole issue with him is, hey, I've never had to shoot a bad guy. And some people have to, and that sucks. But what I have had to worry about is my own son being depressed. As in, he went through a breakup and it was hard for him. And he talked to me and my wife, and that's awesome. But you're exactly right to where I have to put that above the chances of my teenage son's going to need a gun to defend himself against a bad guy. And that's where we make gun people mad, right? Well, this one time in South Dakota, I get it, I get it. But, hey, 10 kids killed themselves yesterday.
Well, notwithstanding the fact that it's also illegal
to
give certain ages access, right?
Yeah, let's be factual. It's not illegal if they use the gun legally. So if your 8-year-old has to go load a shotgun to shoot a bad guy who's literally trying to kill you, that's not the unlawful use of that gun. Right, that's not
unlawful. I'm saying that if they used it for something other than that, then it is illegal.
Yeah, you let your under 14-year-old kid have your gun and he goes and shows Billy and shoots him in the leg,
right?
You're getting convicted of a crime.
So back
to Emily. Hey, you're still here. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So we were talking about the window of time. I got my data here. So 24%. Less than 5 minutes.
Sure. I knew there was a minutes thing you talked about.
24% between 5 and 19 minutes. 23% between 20 minutes and an hour. Only 13% had deliberative and careful planning, and it was a day or more.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, if you can get through a suicidal crisis using a helpline, using a friend, like I said, just tolerating pain, the likelihood that you'll survive is really high. And that, to me, is why. So, yes,
and the likelihood of, well, I shouldn't say just not using a gun, but first of all, guns are very fatal when they're used at point-blank range like they are, because we don't sugarcoat things. Most people shot with a handgun in the United States of America live, and that's talking about good guys and bad guys shooting each other. You put a handgun to your head and pull the trigger. The gas exchange is very fatal, so
and that's the other piece.
What do you call it? Completed suicide, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to
died by suicide.
Died by suicide.
It's
I'm trying to learn what words you're supposed to say. Well, I'm trying to learn.
Well, and it's the difference between so if someone uses medication and tries to overdose, typically you could abort that mid-attempt.
Yeah.
Someone could come in and be like, oh my gosh, Mike, I'm so concerned. I can call 911. I can do CPR there. I can help you. hanging or suffocation, not so much.
No.
But gunshot,
Not
not
so
at
much.
all.
Yeah.
And so, really, like, the lethality piece is a big component of successful.
Sure.
I see. I screw that up
See?
sometimes.
I
Yeah,
know,
I say
we talk about-
successful suicides, and they're not successful. Means like, oh yay, like I successfully got a job.
Yeah.
And when I catch myself, I always get so pissed that I'm like, you're supposed to be a leader in this field, but
I know,
I'm human
but that's
too.
why they call
so,
it. Well, I've read that, and I even sent you a text saying, we not say the word committed, because I read this thing where normally people commit a crime,
yes,
so don't use
and
the word
suicide
committed.
isn't a crime. Yes,
And
people
it's-
are language really
I know,
matters.
yeah.
And so I guess my point with firearms is that means matter. Like how you die by suicide, how you attempt suicide, what you have access to matters because the lethality is so much higher with a firearm.
You ever taken someone who's attempted suicide to the hospital before?
Yeah.
Did they live?
Yeah.
Because they used drugs.
Yeah.
Have you
So-
ever gone
so
to
I
have
was
you ever
gonna-
gone to a suicide call with firearm?
Yes.
Did they live?
No.
Okay, so there's our small, brief mic expo. But yeah, I mean and this is where you and I, like I say, we don't give a shit, right? Is first of all, you go before I start dropping bombs. You go.
Well, I was just gonna say, and this may be the appropriate time to say it or not because
Do
you
it.
just asked me, but this is a very personal issue, as it is for you. Said a lot of people are affected, right?
Yeah.
And I got permission to talk about this. So you talked about your son.
Yeah.
I talked to my daughter last night. She's 26 years old. She's getting married in October.
Yep.
When she's in high school, she tried to commit suicide in our house.
Okay.
And she told me it
Wow.
was cool to talk about it.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
anxiety issues, depression issues, I had no idea
Right.
at the time. No idea. I'm like, what the hell? What
Yeah.
just happened here?
So it feels so sudden to,
Right.
to those around
Yep.
her, but with her, I obviously don't know her, but she probably had struggled with that for a
Yeah,
long
and
time.
and now that we realize this, and I don't want to make it sound like how do I say? She's very, very functional. Like nobody would be able to tell, but she struggles with depression.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she talks about it all the time. She's very open about it.
Yeah.
Very open
Oh.
about it. And she posts on Facebook when she's having a bad day, but that's part of her coping mechanism, right?
Sure. Yep.
But she's still
It's part of
struggles with it
wellness recovery.
all the time for her, all
so,
the time.
in full disclosure, because we're in the it's part of my life plan. The stigma around mental health is really tough, and for our agency, it's tough in a variety of ways. One, people don't want to talk about it. Two, people don't want to give money to it
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like, oh, let's just do it for the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really hard. But in an effort to decrease stigma, I mean, I'm medicated for my anxiety. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm medicated for some, depression. Not ashamed of that. I'm thankful that I have medication that's effective, that allows me to be productive. I'm a good parent. I'm a good partner. I'm productive in my line of work. And I'm thankful that I've never gotten to a point where, suicide felt like an option for me. But it happens, and it's challenging. It's challenging for the people living with it.
You've never thought about suicide? You?
I have never gotten to a point where I felt like it was an option for me.
Oh, you
So-
might be like the only adult I know. How about you? You special forces guys are almost too like.
Well, I mean, I'm not laughing, but I'm laughing because what you say is true, right?
Yeah.
Who has not, and maybe I'm the only one, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Like you're driving down the road and you're like, what if I just slam my
Yeah.
car into that bridge
Yeah.
right now? What if I just slam it right now? What would
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, okay,
and
I'm
then
not doing that. And then
I
you
know.
drive on, right?
And then
but that's
you even
thinking
like,
about it, right?
Would I
That's-
take my
that's thinking
seatbelt
about it.
off? Would I? Okay, but that's just thinking about it, which is, I would say there's no one that doesn't not think about it sometime. But I mean, I've had shitty times in my life. I thought it was the answer.
So not to get all theoretical, but so there's this
Are we in
guy.
the circle of trust? No? Can we do it?
Right
Or the
here.
nest-
Yeah,
the
right
So
there,
nest
tree.
tree?
Shane, you're in the circle of trust
Yes.
too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there
Thank
you
you
go.
very much.
So there's this guy. He's a great researcher out of Florida State, and he has it's called the interpersonal theory on suicide. And basically, his belief, and I support it entirely, is that three things have to kind of happen for suicide to truly be an option. And so one of those is the perceived burdensome. I'm a burden to other people. I'm just a pain in the ass for them. I'm tired of people having to take care of me, that kind of stuff. Along with that social isolation. I don't feel connected to my tribe. I don't feel connected to people. I feel like I'm all alone in the world. But those two things, there has to be the acquired ability to actually enact like lethal self-injury. And that is a really the body is constantly working to stay alive.
Sure. Yeah.
And to override that is an incredibly challenging thing to do. And I've sat through, Tom Joyner is his name, and I've sat through, I think the book that we talked about. We were talking about murder-suicide, and he wrote an exceptional book about how murder-suicides are always the suicide. The suicide is the primary act. The murder, people think that, you go and murder people and then you die because of, you die by suicide because of guilt or other things. It rarely happens that way. It's always the suicide first, and they're taking people with them for beliefs that they have created about why. It might be, they feel like they're protecting them or duty. Or
you see how many parents take their kids with them, as in like, I'm going to help them get out of this situation. There was a mom the other day that did not here locally either, but there was national news I was reading about a mom that took all 3 kids with her. It's like, what? To escape what?
And the belief like, well, they shouldn't have to suffer being without a parent.
Sure.
I'm going to die anyway. And so the thinking isn't always, the stories we tell ourselves, thoughts are not facts.
Yeah.
But we tell ourselves a lot of different things. Even as pretty strong, mentally healthy people, we tell ourselves stories. And so so the body is constantly trying to override, or the body is constantly staying alive. Overriding that can be a really, really challenging thing.
Yeah,
So,
and you're right. The body does, it doesn't want to die.
It doesn't want to die.
You have
That's
to
why we have-
work. And years ago, even before I met you, that's when I learned about the magical window. They talk about any body can have the ability for a certain amount of time, whether it's the right chemical release in your brain or whatever, let alone the mixture of drugs and whatever else. But it's pretty hard to kill yourself, to get over that hump.
Yeah.
But things have to be bad, or you have to perceive that they're that bad. So.
Yeah. So you want to throw some stuff at me?
I'm going to throw stuff at you. First, one more thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for your daughter sharing that. That's cool of you to do that, because people know you and it makes it real. Not that Emily's not real or I'm not real, but, and Shane, do not miss the opportunity. What is that? Is that like a
What's what?
team?
So I'll plug those guys right now.
You
This is actually an organization
That's cool.
that I belong to.
Sure.
So Daniel Brazil, one of the other folks that commented here, and is the executive director of Team Fidelis, which I guess I should have probably wore their. Sorry, Dan.
You should have wore the shirt.
But I didn't. Team Fidelis is a veterans group that I belong to. That their mission is veteran suicide awareness. So they're making some good comments.
We should talk more about that, because
they should talk to her, and Shane's adjusting.
So
things.
they're out of Missouri. So they have a huge presence in Kansas City.
Yeah.
There's only a small number of us here in Iowa. We're trying to branch out.
Sure.
Right? So
Well,
here's his comment. Can you read it? You don't have it up.
No, I don't have it up.
It says,
so read
Emily
it.
is on point. We work with veterans every day who are very comfortable with guns, and we go to the gun shows to talk to people. It's truly not about taking guns away, like that's what everybody thinks, right? But the numbers don't lie. It's about getting them through the crisis. And so,
God, I need him to come and work for me.
Yes, you need him. Oh, hey. She's hiring. I saw an ad for that the other
Daniel's
day.
a great
actually.
guy.
Development
We ran the
director.
Marine Corps Marathon together a couple years ago.
Told you he runs all the time. You guys are
I
like,
have a marathon coming up.
oh, you guys run for no reason. I don't.
Hot.
No,
It's hot outside.
I run because I need a little bit. I need to sweat it out. Some of the stuff can get heavy.
Yeah.
I gotta sweat it out.
Sweat the demons out.
But
Your wife told me she would take me and do that for me.
Oh yeah, the sweat. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll do it for you.
I want to. No,
Do it in my
I wanna-
backyard.
Your wife's way was like
Plastic wrap in
I'm
a
so
your
so,
wife's-
Coleman stove.
Your
I'm so
wife's way, I
curious
just got
now,
to
but
sit there.
I don't really want to know. But it
Sweat
sounds.
Lodge?
Yeah.
Sweat
Sweat
Lodge?
Lodge?
Oh,
She's
yeah.
Native
Oh.
American, and she said she
Wow.
would, do it. Yeah, I like
My
her way
friend
because I don't
Ben
run.
does sweat lodges
I've
regularly.
done 2 of
Yeah.
those. Those are fantastic.
Yeah,
All right.
she goes pretty often.
Hey, there you brought it up.
Now,
Good job.
Mikey, is this it right here?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it. That's them. Yep.
So if you
So,
want to check out Team
so I
Fidelis.
was really, that's fabulous. I was really happy to see a lot of stuff on Memorial Day, more than I've seen in past years, about veteran suicide and how we're not just, remembering, veterans that died. My dad fought in Vietnam. He was exposed to Agent Orange, and he died when I was a senior in high school. And, I spent a lot of time in high school and college doing a lot of stuff about the Vietnam War because I was so curious. But in doing so, I had no idea the struggles that veterans, 17-year-old female, not a whole lot of idea of how veterans struggled, but I think that it is such a huge issue of exposure. I think we see it with police officers too. I think we see it, when your exposure to shitty, there I did it again, your exposure to shitty things is high, and it's hard to compartmentalize sometimes. I think that personal expectations play a big part in, how and it's hard to manage. And so I also think males in particular, although I have seen many female veterans who I think are mentally built like the typical male. I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No,
they're very hard. That reaching out and asking for help is not a comfortable thing to do in any way. And so...
Yeah, I imagine the whole... people can try to psychoanalyze this, but if you're a female officer, female firefighter, female person in the military, I don't just say soldier, then you're like, they're Marines. But anyway... You've already kind of like had to fight against the guy versus girl thing, I would think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you make it there, and even let's just say law enforcement. It's like you're already in a male-dominated thing, even though it's super common to have female officers. But I wonder if they even have a harder time saying, well, crap, I made it this far and I proved my grit out on the street, but now I need to say, oh my God, I'm struggling. That's probably a double-edged sword. So.
Well, and that's the stigma piece that I continue to think, how do we fight? How as a society do we fight against that? Because we can talk in a group like this and be like, mental health's okay. Yeah. People live with it successfully every single day. Yep. People have found great coping mechanisms to manage whatever's going on with them. But why?
We have to make it cool. You have to make it cool to talk about. You do. You have to make it, in the veterans...
Or acceptable.
Well, yeah, and what I mean is, your 22 a day thing, and I'm not like saying all that crap. What I mean is tons of veteran-driven stuff, challenges, calling people out. But you guys are, when I say you guys, you and your buddies, your brothers in arms, and Shane's been there, done that. You kind of like, you're willing to butt heads with each other more than most people. You're willing to call those guys out.
Sure.
And, but that's a bond you guys have. The hard part is, how do you call out people saying, well, I hardly know Shane, but wow, you're acting totally different, or, maybe his coworkers that don't know him the same way, the people that were in the military with him, but they have a right to call him out too. And I mean call him out in a good way, as in, dude, what's wrong?
Well, and that's the I think that veterans have a great a great opportunity to. So if I think Ernie's struggling, and I say, "Hey,
every day,
Ernie, I'm really concerned about you. Things seem to be different. Have you thought about suicide? Are you contemplating suicide?" And we have that conversation. And I know that Ernie's got guns in his house, and I don't know how they're stored. But let's say Ernie's a veteran, and I say, "Hey, your buddies, would one of them hold your guns for you?" There's a partnership there. Can one of your friends do that? And I don't know if it's easier, and maybe you can help me with that. Is it easier to ask that of someone who you know?
Yeah, it would be. But I Squirrel Brain, I got one.
Do it.
I got one too. But
do it.
And this kind of relates back to what we were talking about: storage of firearms and possessing firearms.
Yes.
So there's a big or there was one. We've talked about on the show maybe about a year ago. Veterans Administration, quote unquote, taking guns away from people, or at least their right to possess guns by random doctors.
Like mental health status,
saying,
documentation.
Hey, this guy's got a problem, without professional diagnosis. And that was a huge issue.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much it's, how prevalent it is elsewhere.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I also feel like if we were able to engage in honest conversations with the people we care about, which I think is sometimes a hard thing to do with our kids, with our partners, with our friends, really asking, are you okay? I'm really concerned about you. And then asking the tough question that no one wants to ask because they're so afraid that the answer is going to be yes. Yes, I've thought about suicide, or yes, I'm contemplating suicide. And then someone's like, oh, crap. Now what do I do with it? Now that they've said yes, I don't know what to do. So people don't ask, even doctors. I mean, most doctors get limited training on suicide prevention. I mean, we show up at the emergency room and provide support
which is
there.
funny because it's like a script. You know, have you been out of the country? Have you thought of hurting yourself or others? I mean, they go down it every time. You know?
Well, and for people who are suicidal, hurting yourself is very different. So, you know, what we know is that people want to end the pain. That's really what it's about. They don't want to die. They want to end the pain. They want to stop living the way that they're living. It's so incredibly painful and uncomfortable for them. They just want it to stop. So when you say, hey, are you contemplating hurting yourself? A lot of times the true answer is no, even if someone's contemplating taking their life. And so asking the difficult question of like, hey, Ernie, I'm concerned. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself?
Sure.
You know, do you have a plan for that? Can we talk about that?
There's the big question, right?
What's my
do you
role?
have a plan? Yeah.
What's my role in keeping you safe for now? Because my job, my job isn't to, as someone who cares about you, I don't need to think about keeping you safe tomorrow. I don't need to think about keeping you safe in a week. You know, right now I want to keep you safe now. How do we make sure that you're safe now? So.
All right. So, number one bracket of people here. I'm going to make an assumption.
You're going to ask me a lot of questions.
Here we go.
I don't know the answers to off the top of my head.
You will.
Ernie, right before you do that, I'm sorry. Keep
Voice in
whatever
the
you have
corner.
in your
I got
head.
it.
Keep it in there.
Squirrels are in here.
Everybody who's watching, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you're just now getting in on the show, we're talking with Emily
All 20
Blomme.
of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you might have family members or friends who have struggled. If you want to leave a comment, leave a story, if you feel like you can connect with somebody or have somebody connect with you personally of struggles that you've gone through, go ahead and leave that comment or any questions that you have for Emily on our Facebook chat.
And if for some reason this is, creating, a personal struggle to someone who's watching, if I can do a plug for our Foundation 2 crisis number, because I just want to, sometimes we don't even know what can
Shane has it up
trigger
there.
people. So 1-800-332-4224.
1-800-332-
– 4224. That's our toll-free number. Or you could call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which we answer in Iowa. And that's the 1-800-273-TALK, which is publicized everywhere. And the NSPL actually has a partnership with the VA, and we answer for the VA line as well. So.
All right. You ready?
By the way, I'm pulling up statistics.
These are easy ones.
Are you sure?
Do more white people or black people kill themselves?
White.
Male or female?
Male.
Number one cause of death of the suicides. Number one.
Like means?
No, yeah.
Firearms.
There you go. And I believe our groups are like 24 to 65, 30 to 65 in there. You get a ton of them. 70% or so.
Yeah, and adult white middle-aged men.
Yeah.
Would be your go-to.
Most likely.
Most likely.
Like if you, and this is like.
Followed quickly by youth.
Sure.
But nonetheless.
Absolutely.
It really is middle-aged white men.
So middle-aged white men, and like you said, you don't care if they legally own the gun or not. You and I had that comment, and I'm like, I like your attitude of, I focus on legally, like I think in terms of the people I know, they own guns legally. And you're like, I don't care if this guy's a felon and has a gun and shouldn't.
Nope.
I care how he stores it.
Yep.
And so, and then we also did talk about the fact that felons who have guns don't have gun safes because it tells the police, hey, that you might have guns, and they're not allowed to have them. But it's a shame because they still need to have, safe storage around their kids.
Well, it's here. There are two benefits to storing your guns safely that are locked up. One,
I'm going to name a lot more than two, but I want to hear your two.
People who live in your home, you included, can get through a suicidal crisis or a mental health crisis safely if they don't have access to a gun.
Sure.
Two, your gun won't be stolen by someone who shouldn't have access to it if it's locked safely.
Sure.
I know that's a huge controversy, who has guns and who shouldn't, but safe storage, there's value to safe storage outside of.
If everyone properly stored their guns,
it
would save lives.
Oh my gosh.
Sure. That's
if I could plead with everyone right now.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of questions. So not being a gun owner and not being well versed in guns, I called Ernie up one day. I'm like, I don't understand. You have to help me. I don't understand something. I am promoting safe storage of guns, but the people who I think typically would have a gun would be people who would want it to use it quickly for an intruder. How do I reconcile those two things? And he's like, oh, they've got these, I don't know if you use the term biometric or whatever. Biometric. But like there are, and now I know like there's somewhere you can like sleep with like this band on, and as you're reaching for the safe, like it pops open. There's like fingerprint ones, there's code. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. But that was something, because in my head I'm thinking your gun safe is down in the basement, you're sleeping up. Like
well, and that's true. Like, I have 2 different gun safes. There's, like, where you put your guns that you don't care about getting to in a hurry. And then there's, like, the one gun I'm going to have staged properly, locked up, to where I can get to it quickly if I need to. So it doesn't eliminate, I'm not saying your idea. It doesn't eliminate the idea of that, hey, Ernie can't get to it. But I'm done giving my kids access to it. And honestly, yes, you need to make them harder to steal or harder for, hey, Ethan's dad has guns, so I want to kill myself. I'm going to go look around Ethan's dad's house when I'm there at the swimming pool or whatever. It's back to where, you know, and again, I don't know these numbers, and I'm talking out of my ass, but I'm not wrong. There are a lot of people who commit suicide,
die by suicide. It's okay.
Yep. See, I'm not good at sugarcoating that part. So they successfully complete suicide, which sounds wrong also, with a gun they borrowed from someone that trusted them with it. So,
yes.
and sometimes they go and just take it. Like they know that, hey, Grandpa's gun's at the hunting cabin. I'll just go get that. So they're already familiar. They're not like randomly looking through cars to steal guns and then say, I'm going to kill myself with this gun that I stole. You know, and you can look at things like Texas and say, hey, you know, when I say I'm not playing armchair quarterback, I'm just going to go factually. A 17-year-old kid in Texas used his dad's guns to go kill people, right?
How many times we heard that?
Yeah. So so it's like, how do you stop him from getting it to where, well, his dad gave him the, you know, were they in a safe and he had the code? Were they not locked up at all? And when I say I don't care about that, what I mean is going forward, and that's my thing why I want to work with her, is I want everybody to want to store their guns properly, like the smart way that saves lives, before the government gets involved telling us how to do it, because the government's not very good at anything.
So there's this great, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's this great research study that was done that parents underestimate their children's experience with guns. And so there was this research that said gun-owning parents who reported that their children had never handled their firearms at home. 22% of the children, when questioned separately, were like, oh, yeah, I know the gun safe, or I know where they're at. And the other piece of it that was interesting is that when you look at firearm suicides among youth 17 and under, 82% of them used a firearm that belonged to a family member, typically a parent, and 3/4 of them were not locked.
Sure.
And in the remaining cases where they were locked, the youth knew the combination or knew where the key was kept.
And that's just, when I say just, most firearm deaths in America, by the way, for anybody that's shocked by that shouldn't be following CVO if you're shocked by that. First of all, most people killed with a firearm in this country, it was done by suicide, not by murder.
I actually
Way
have
more.
that statistic.
About 2/3, 60% or so. Every year almost. It only fluctuates a couple percent. But, hey, how many times do we read, kid got the gun out of the purse, shoots himself, kid's in mom's purse in Target parking lot, digs it, you know. Hey, even officers, right? Kid takes dad's duty gun out of the, has that happened? Yes, that's happened. So, and that's the thing, is you train people, I train people, whatever. We do all this training to try to live longer by fighting bad guys if you have to, right? If you need to. So I believe in that, and I'm never going to quit doing that. But it's weird trying to get people to also say, hey, you know what? If all of us locked up our guns properly, I don't want the government to say you have to have.
It's the total package, right?
It's the total package.
And that's the point I was going to make
Go.
a little earlier about
say the
the
word
government.
holistic.
I was, have I said it this? Holistic.
Do it.
Anyway, you don't want the government telling you how to do something. This is the same group of individuals that want us to store our firearms with trigger locks on.
I was going to say
All right.
724.22,
Right.
number 7, yeah, is the very first thing Iowa says is it should be unlawful to leave a store a loaded firearm in your house unless you have a trigger lock on it. Absolutely insane advice.
The stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It's going to get someone hurt.
Is
but
that
whatever.
a trigger lock like the wire one?
No.
So a trigger
Well,
lock is like a 2-pound metal, basically clamp that goes over the trigger.
Okay.
So you can't manipulate the trigger. It's good for storing unloaded firearms, but if you try to pry it with a screwdriver or you even drop the firearm, there's a good chance it'll manipulate the trigger. So dumb
That's no
idea.
good, yeah.
Dumb idea.
But it's actually an Iowa
But
law
it's
to
in the law.
say, do this dumb idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to find
But
somebody.
the other thing I was going to say was, you know, I think this is a first step, and the way we get people to do what we need them to do is by education. So we need to get all the responsible gun owners to start parroting these procedures, you know, and policies. I guess not really policy; it's not official, but good ideas or good practices.
Sure.
So there was a bunch of there are a bunch of states that do have like gun safety partnerships really well done, and one of them really did a lot with gun shop owners, in part because there was a big push, I don't know when, I'll say the 80s, but correct, you may know differently, about accidental shootings. And accidental shootings used to be really high, and there was all this education that was done. And when someone bought a gun, here's information about accidental shootings. And the gun, I mean, no one who owns a gun wants someone to die by suicide.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the exact, so to me, it's not like it's something that everybody, I mean, the NRA doesn't want people to die by suicide. Honestly, it makes them look bad every single time a gun isn't stored the way that it could be and someone dies by suicide. But
Hey, you stepped on a bomb there, so let's go back.
Yeah.
You were in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
in like the national get-together of how do we make life better.
I was
Right?
at the American Association of Suicidology conference, which,
And-
by the way, your group, they do some great veterans sessions.
Yep.
So if there's people that would, the AAS, it's in Nashville next year in April. I can get you that, but they do.
Yeah.
There's great presentations about suicide and veterans and all sorts of great stuff.
yeah.
Squirrels, the rest of us.
Sorry,
It's
Hey,
the way we
who-
roll. It's the way we roll around here.
You sent me a message and said, "Hey, I met this person. Where were they from?"
They were at was the head policy advisor for the NRA was at a dinner, a gun safety dinner with me.
Yeah, and it's like not rare. Like they go to all those things.
Well, I don't know because I haven't.
Well,
I've
I
never
know you
met one
don't.
before, so it's very
But-
possible. But
Sure, but like you realize, you know, and I'm not trying to. This is not political. This isn't. It isn't any of that. I don't care about your politics, but they actually do care about storage and about suicide, and they. And that's one of the things. It's just kind of like, you know, I could go out and holler from the top of the mountains that the NRA isn't what's wrong with this country, and immediately a whole bunch of people just quit listening, and that too is a shame.
Well,
That's a shame that they
so
don't.
I think there's. I mean, so the idea of like school shootings, access to high capacity rifles, like that's one piece. I have thoughts on that, but that's not the piece that. The piece for me is how guns are stored.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if you have a high capacity rifle, store it safe.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely do people die by suicide with a high capacity, like
Yeah.
whatever we want to call those. I
Sure.
don't know of what we call them, but the, you know, that's the issue that I think, you know, people get pissed with the NRA about. My experience with the NRA, the only experience I've had with the NRA is that they were at the same table I was,
Yep.
trying to figure out how does the NRA work to save lives, just like I am working to save lives when it comes to safe storage of weapons, because that is not a Second Amendment issue.
Yeah.
It's just not. That's a personal, in my home, it's the same way I store my meds.
Sure.
I have teenagers at home. They have friends over.
one more
Our
good
meds
thing.
are locked.
It's one thing gun safes are also good for. Your narcotics.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those.
So I think that
Your legally owned narcotics. There's enough gun safes in this town with illegal narcotics.
So I do think that, you know, if we're looking at how do we keep homes safer, how do we keep families safer, it's not just about safe storage of guns, it's safe storage of medication.
Sure.
I just think there's...
But a gun safe could do a lot of that. You know, and that's that thing where we could get people to say, hey, when people buy a gun safe, even though they're gun people, they very soon realize, like, you know, their spouses will be like, hey, we're going to put this special family album in there. You know, this is Grandma's 1939 black and white pictures we can't replace. That goes in there. There's way more important things to put in your guns, put in your gun safe sentimentally than a firearm. I know that we need to have safe storage, but what I mean is sentimental value-wise, there's lots of important things. But many people soon realize it's like, hey, we should have all our medications in our gun safe, especially since most of them can fit in one tiny little shelf. But if we could get everybody in the country tomorrow, poof, they have their guns locked up and their drugs locked up, It
Oh
would
my
be
gosh.
amazing.
Life-changing.
Sure. Thousands of people a
Society
year.
would change.
Thousands of people a year. But some people get butt hurt when we start talking about gun storage, right?
My rights.
My rights.
Well,
Stomp of
and
power.
then, yeah,
I know you're not. We're not even going to go there today. Like when people will be like, "How?" I've even had people. How does she feel about this? How does she feel? I said, it doesn't matter. I don't talk to her. I don't care. Like,
I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I just the
It
other
doesn't
thing
get
is,
anywhere.
well, and I don't think, to be honest, I don't think I'm educated enough about guns to be able to have an opinion. I think that I'm doing the world a disservice by spouting my mouth off about an opinion that I have when I don't have enough education or knowledge to be able to know where that came from. If that's the case, I'm just spewing someone else's opinion, and we have enough of that in the world. No one needs it from me.
I almost said something really snarky there.
You can be snarky.
Were you going to say something? That
I was going to
involved-
say, like Fox News?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, come on now.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Wait
actually-
a minute. See? Shouldn't have told me.
That's okay. It's totally fine. So yeah, we want people to like not die, and the biggest way, the reason you're here is because we're going to try to. I can reach people that maybe you couldn't.
Yes.
And I need everybody that follows CVO to wake up and go. Well, he's talking about those people and that are most likely. And when I say most likely, I'm not saying because you're a white middle-aged guy that works at General Mills and have a gun that you're most likely to do it, but you belong to the category that does. So it's, everybody can say, not me, it's not going to happen to me, but that's the point, is it's happening to people like us all around.
So the thought that went through my mind, though, when you said that demographic was, is that because white middle-aged males tend to be the ones that own more guns?
Yes.
Well, sure.
I mean, I think that's a component of it.
Right.
I'm not sure we can say that's the reason why. When we look at farmers, we're seeing a huge increase in suicides of farmers, and
that's the thing going on right now.
and it's interesting to me because I kept thinking like, oh well, there's the 1980s farm crisis. Like, why are we seeing more suicides now than we were then? The reason I think the reason is because in the 1980s, everyone was suffering. You were suffering alongside other farmers who were also in a bad place. But now it's certain crops or it's certain
Small farms
animals,
versus big
small
farms.
firms.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So I think I honestly think farmers that are struggling are feeling less a part of something, more alone. And it is a challenge. And there are certain professions that I think are more at risk.
EMS, law enforcement, but the thing is, like you said, farming, and we should talk about that because we're in Iowa, because that's not just like a blip. That's like a huge thing right now.
Yes.
The increase in suicides by people that make a living in the agricultural world.
Yes, absolutely.
Just like a huge increase right now is children and African American children. I was reading the thing the other day. It's like, okay, statistically, African American kids had less suicide rates. Now it's getting higher, especially.
It's growing faster.
And how young the group is, like 5 to 13.
It's a super young group.
That's scary.
And again, we look at that and we think, what's that about? I'm not sure we know. I don't know if that's access to guns. I actually don't even know if guns are the main means.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I don't know about capacity for life. Like, how challenging are these lives? Is it in a certain area? Are we talking about just, down in the South or Detroit or, or LA? Like, I'm not sure, but I know that there's definitely research out there that support the children. Nationwide Children's Hospital does a lot of really great research on suicides of African American youth. So,
and I would think a lot of our followers probably doesn't even, me included, not too long ago, just to say, I worry about my teenage son who has a adult relationship, a long-standing relationship with somebody. And then it's like, I never would have thought to worry about my 6-year-old killing themselves through, accidental shooting. Yes, I still need to worry about it and plan for that and mitigate that with having a safe storage. What I'm talking about is like, it just, to me, to try to say, well, how do we get 6-year-olds to quit killing themselves? That's like, how is that even a problem?
So I think as parents, again, I have 3 teenagers, 2 at home. We think we know our children well. I have a great relationship with my kids, but does that mean that they tell me everything? No. Would I expect that of them? No. Was I a teenager once? Yes. Did I tell my parents everything? No. But I think that it's the honest conversations that we're really lacking in our society.
Society doesn't like honest conversations these days.
Discomfort is a stumbling block for honest conversations with other humans. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm not going to ask Mike, God, I want to ask Mike this question, but it makes me uncomfortable. It's going to make him uncomfortable. Like, it's just easier not to. But when we look at how do we have conversations with our kids about sex and drugs and porn and, guns and, good decision making and driving safely and all these things.
Make good decisions. We say that a lot in our household.
Every time my kids leave school, have a great day, make good decisions. And I can't expect, they're not perfect. I don't make good decisions every day. I can't expect that of them.
You bought decaf.
I bought decaf. It's
Poor,
decaf.
poor decision.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Poor decision.
We got to have some humor.
No, it's fine. But so I think parents a lot of times are afraid to engage in really tough conversations with their kids. We were talking a little bit about 13 Reasons Why.
Sure.
And, there were a couple parts of, I'm really happy that society is focused, or at least it's part of like a suicide and challenging conversations of youth is a part of a national conversation. I think there's value in that. I really do. I think, we talked about like every single issue that, or the majority of issues that a teenager could face is definitely a part of that series. I'm not in support of parents just being like, everyone's watching it, go watch it. Like, watch it with your kids, be present, ask them questions. If they're going to watch it, you should watch it. I mean, honestly, being able to.
See, now you're going back to what we would call common sense parenting.
But I think life is busy and parents don't always know what's important.
Oh, no. Yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to give parents a lot of grace. I am one. I'm not a perfect parent, but being able to ask open-ended questions about what did you, gosh, that was a really tough episode for me to watch. Have you experienced something like that? Does that stuff happen at your school? Well, what would you do if that happened to you? Or how would you have responded differently? Open-ended questions for your kids. It builds rapport with them. It builds trust with them. I guarantee my kids do not tell me everything, but living in a home with me doing the work I do, and my husband does, does criminal defense and juvenile delinquency cases.
Oh, he's not busy.
Our kids are overexposed to social issues.
So
but it forces conversation.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm
Here we go.
glad my daughter's actually watching. She's asked a question.
Thank you, Mike's daughter.
So we're getting education out there. This is good. So she asked, would that show trigger somebody that's
easily?
Yeah.
And it has. Yeah. And I think that one of my issues with 13 Reasons Why is that I don't think they did a lot of good research on the front end with people in the field about what potentially could be a trigger. And I think they do it. But when it first came out, putting the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number on there, doing a thing at the beginning that says, hey, this show could be a trigger. This show could really, it brings up really challenging stuff. This is the topic for this episode. It might be an episode to skip. It might be an episode to watch with someone you care about. It might be, if you're struggling, here's the number. Here's how you chat and text with National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Here's the number that you call. Reach out for support.
They didn't do that with the first season, I know. But they did do that with every episode of the second season.
Yes, because they came under a significant fire. It was bad. 13 Reasons Why is highly controversial. And I understand to some extent because I think it sends a my concern is it sends the message that adults aren't willing to help. And I think that's BS. I think the teacher who drives you crazy, a parent, a friend's parent, it's hard to ask for help for anyone. But I think those are people that if you're in a tough situation and you reach out for help, the majority of people will help you. I wish I could tell kids that more. The majority of people in the world will help you. We raised our kids with not don't talk to a stranger, but don't go off with a stranger. Because I think it's okay to talk to strangers. I think it's okay to if you need help, ask someone who looks like they would be helpful, and if you're lost, my kid got lost at Target when he was 6. He had no issue going up to a stranger and saying, I've lost my mom. I don't know where she, do you think you could help me? You know, could he have gotten carted off somewhere? I guess. But that shit just doesn't happen as much as people think. When it does, it's horrible. Yep. But I just think we cannot
There's a lot of good people in the world.
We cannot insulate our children from a world that looks the way our society does. No. But we can't. How do we teach them to live in it? And I think having honest conversations about these types of shows and these types of issues really help engage your kids and build trust. And
you know what I think about this is the good thing. I do believe.
Ask if they can hear him.
They can.
We talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Always assume.
I think that all the points that you brought up about that show, 13 Reasons, it was super entertaining to me. I couldn't stop binge watching it.
Yes.
But besides that point, I think it actually focuses on the number one thing that has gotten lost in the discussion about suicide, which is we seem to always focus so heavily on firearms, firearm prevention, training, discussions, all this stuff. But how did that kid get to this point? And this show is trying to the way I took it anyway, because everybody's going to take it differently. The way I took it was this show is trying to frame this in a way that we are a community. You know, we all have to care about what's going on around us. All of our interactions. After the first season, spoiler alert, when the first season's over with, the main male character is saying we're all to blame for what happened here because we all contributed in a way, and to take responsibility for how you're treating your coworker, for how you're treating your spouse, for how you're treating your child, for how you're treating your best friends. You're talking about difficult conversations to have with people. Hey, Ernie, how are you feeling? I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
Do you have a veteran friend who could store your guns? Pretty difficult to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how often, and I haven't done it yet, but I'll do it right now. Hey, Ernie, I really fucking care about you.
Hey,
You're one of the most important people that I've ever met, and you've brought a lot of wonderful things to my life, so I really appreciate you.
And what did I talk you into doing? You bought a gun safe.
Yeah.
See, we're getting
that
somewhere.
Positive thing,
my heart just grew
people
3
have,
sizes.
People have a really hard time even saying the positive things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And when we leave out the positive things and we don't let people know that they're important to us, and everybody feels isolated, it's extremely hard to have those hard conversations about you look like you're feeling down. So if we're not doing the first thing, how can we move on to the second thing?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, there are so many things that contribute to someone feeling suicidal. There are so many things, and it's different for everybody. But when you're around people that you care about, you experience them and checking in with them and reminding them that you matter to me. You matter to me. It's not just like telling my kids like, oh, I love you. They matter to me, and reminding them of that. I don't think that, many times the guilt of people who are left behind, suicide loss survivors, the guilt is horrible, and it's I should have seen this. I should have known.
Yeah.
If we go by I believe that suicide is preventable, because if I go by the philosophy that it's not, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Really, I have to go by the philosophy that suicide is preventable.
And it is.
Now, does that mean that every single suicide, we could have saved every single life? I'm not sure it means that. But I do think, with your daughter, you didn't know. But I'm sure I can only imagine you felt you had to have had these mixed feelings.
That's happened quite a few years ago, but I'm extremely sensitive to her moods now. Mm-hmm. If she posts anything or says anything that's even, and she knows this, but that's even a little off, I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
But
that's how you save somebody. Yeah. Potentially.
It is, and it may drive them crazy. Mm-hmm. They might be like, enough already. I'm fine. Yeah. Well, I don't know that, and I don't know what's going to be the one thing that, or the 3 things or the 8 things that are going to make this.
So when you say you're not a gun person, which you're not, so bear with me because you can understand this idea. You two Army badass gun guys. Here's the interesting thing.
Are you saying I'm not badass?
You're badass.
Okay.
You're not a badass Army guy.
She's got tattoos.
Yes,
man.
you have tattoos and you run. But here's what's funny. So, you declare your love for me and tell me that I'm important to you. What's funny is, can't you just imagine your coworkers laughing about you saying something like that?
Actually, I'm kind of a goof.
You're a big softy anyway.
Yeah.
People know that about you.
Right.
But
and Mike, don't be offended.
Sure.
I mean that to you too.
I got your brother.
Yeah. So here's the thing. How many guys would the majority, can we say, and it's not all about guys, let's talk about the gun world, so guys and girls. The gun world as we know it, personally. People are willing to train to, like, shoot somebody if they had to, right?
Yeah.
To stay alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you might have to
I mean, I think a lot of them don't get that concept, but yeah. Ultimately, yeah.
Like, yes, like, you're willing to do really bad things to another human to stay alive.
But you're not willing to engage in a conversation with them?
You're jumping my ship already.
Sorry,
but no, she's right. But she's right. It's like, you know how many things people say, well, I'm going to train for this, and that. I mean, you go to ShivWorks, you go to Craig Douglas, right? Yeah. You learn how to stab people in the taint. Yeah. That's pretty personal, right?
You can't put a tourniquet on that.
Yep. And so you're literally talking about, it is. You're literally talking about things are so bad. And has it happened in real life? Yes. Things are so bad, you're going to save your life with a knife and do really horrible things to another human because they're trying to kill you. But can that same person struggles saying something like he just did? True or false?
True. And to kind of, I think the veterans community does a good job at that.
Does a better job.
Does a better job. But I would say good.
Yeah.
In most cases, I belong to a lot of Facebook groups and just in general.
Yeah.
It is not unusual for somebody I haven't talked to in like 2 months to text me and say, "Hey man, how you doing?"
No.
You know, like, how you doing today?
Sure.
It happens all the time.
But here, I'll throw up a bunch of names that people don't know or do know. Some of them do know. But what I'm saying is, let's say like you and Robin Godolphin and those, like your brotherhood there, right? Mm-hmm. Are they way hardcore into training more than most people?
Yeah.
And are they also the type of people to actually like share family stuff and feelings with each other?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah, like more than most that I see just in the groups that I belong to.
Sure.
So, you know, it's kind of funny when people are like, you know, what's a perfect person? If you could create this perfect person to go out and train and be ready to defend themselves in this whole evil world, a lot of it revolves around their ability to share their feelings, like, and talk and check on their buddies and check on their loved ones.
So I'm going to get really philosophical.
Go,
here, right?
do it.
I think if you can come to grips with the reality of your own mortality enough that you're going to try to defend that,
yep,
it makes you get real about a lot of other things.
Sure.
So you got to think about a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And then you start saying, "Oh yeah, that's important too." You know?
Yeah.
If I made any sense there.
No, you absolutely have. Like, you know, and that's the talk I had with my son just a couple weeks ago, you know, and he turned 18, you know, and we were just talking about the fact that, hey, I had to worry about bad guys coming in our house. I mean, you do. I'm not going to not worry about somebody coming in my house in the middle of the night because guess what? It happens thousands of times a year in this country. So
it happened to us.
Yeah. See, it happens in real life. So, but it's like looking back, it's like, you know, I should have learned more about teenage suicide. I really should have, to say that, hey, actually, you know, he's probably more of a threat to himself than somebody coming in from the outside. So I need to train equally for both. And if it's more of a threat to worry about him after a breakup or whatever, any teenage kid and the things they're going through, why am I not putting equal effort into that? So it just
plausibility principle, right?
Yeah, plausibility, right? What's probable? A super depressed teenager killing themselves is more probable than a bad guy kicking in my door. But I'm not giving up on the idea of training for the bad guy kicking in my door because it happens. I'm not going to say I'm not going to worry about it. But it's back to where we only have so much. We only have $1 worth of attention, right? And we only have, everybody has limited time and resources. Is, you know, as I shift how I want to, you know, spend mine, people are like, hey, the gun store guy got weird. Like, he doesn't, well, yeah, I'll spend 20 or 30% of my time training with guns. That's probably enough, if even that. So I got more important things to do. And that offends some people, but like literally like, hey, I have a better chance of saving people close to me by focusing on this kind of thing. I don't know. There's my philosophical thing. There's my holistic approach.
You make fun of me.
No, I like it.
Fun of me.
I am not at all. I'm all about that.
He's making fun of me, isn't he?
Hey, there's lots of things we do to make our lives better that have nothing to do with firearms, isn't there?
That's true.
Yeah, like go fishing or ride a motorcycle or run for no reason, whatever.
No, there's a reason.
Yeah.
There is.
What else do we need to tell the world about you before you go?
Gosh, I don't
anything?
I don't know.
I don't even know. Mike and I are gonna. What do we got? Oh, we got some time to drop some serious.
Yeah.
Like really stir up the pot.
I don't know if you guys want me on that stuff.
You can be around. You can get up and leave when you want. You can be.
I'll jump in if I don't know if there's anything else that, I would just say, like, our Facebook page, the foundation2.org, and our website, foundation2.org, has tons of resources, signs and symptoms. What do you do? How do you ask? I think there's good stuff that can be helpful on that page. If people want to donate money to us, Duck Race is a way to do it. Once Duck Race is over, we still, we take
donations.
We take financial donations.
There might be a
all
fundraiser in your
year.
future that involves my store, but we need to talk about that. So we'll see.
We can talk about that. I can't. I don't, in good faith, have anyone raffling off a gun for me.
No, it's
so
not a
we'll
gun.
have to talk about that. But
Yeah.
something else,
That
like
would
a
actually
gun
be-
safe, would be
Yeah, gun
amazing.
safe.
Sure.
There you go.
Like that would be spectacular.
So you want it to be a gun safe?
I don't want it to be a gun.
All right. Okay.
That would be my preference. I feel like that for whatever reason, I have some internal
You know how we talk
conflict
about
and
stock?
discomfort.
I get it, but that's also stopping the stigma. Is you're looking at the inanimate object for the end result of like what he said. How did we ever even get here? Because school shootings, which, like you said, how many times is it? I'm going to kill myself, but I'm going to go here and take some people with me. It was about the suicide. This, we're focused on the end result because it's so traumatic. I get it, as in people lost their lives. But it's frustrating to start there and go backwards, right?
Yeah.
So, like I always tell people, is you're seeing the end result, and once the end result's here, we can't do anything about it. And you're not going to keep solving something by the end result. You got to go back to how it all started. And then people would say, well, then just take away all guns. I mean, literally, if people have that, and you don't have that attitude, I'm saying for people that have that attitude, good for them, that's fine. Hey, let alone the Constitution and some other important things. But do you really think that stops people from harming each other? You're lying to yourself, because you already have people who have access to firearms or could get them in this world, kill each other in other ways, kill themselves in other ways. And, we got to go back to the beginning, right?
Well, and it's not just a gun issue or a mental health issue. I get pissed when people are like, it's a mental health issue. No,
I'm guilty of saying that myself over the years. And
there's it's a combination of factors for every single
Yep.
situation. I think it's different for every single situation. And this idea, it's the same thing. I feel like it's unfair to say, take all guns away from people who have mental health issues. Like, what constitutes a mental health issue? I mean,
that's a slippery slope.
Am I feeling sad today? Is that a mental health?
Exactly.
Right?
And
Yep.
so what I think is, as a society, why
Do you
can't
use
we just
trazodone to go to bed at night? Do you have a mental issue?
why can't we just give a shit about one another?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, seriously, like, you're absolutely right. Like, if we can just care about one another and check in with people
Hashtag
and
give a shit. I'm using that later today.
please.
No.
I think it's
better
great.
than the other one that we talked about. So I'm going to go with hashtag give a shit. So, but you're right. See, but look what you're asking. You're asking for people to fundamentally care about other people.
I know.
And we live in this world of it's everybody else's fault. Where's mine? If I don't get what I want, I throw a temper tantrum. And that took generations to get here.
Yeah.
But
Did it really?
But it's
Did it, or was it always like that? We just didn't really focus on it. Do you think the people in 1885 really gave a shit about people any more than they do now?
You mean, did they?
It's always about, everybody cares about themselves first. I mean, that's part of human nature.
You took care of your
It
neighbors
is.
better. You knew all your neighbors.
Supposedly, we
Yeah.
get a
But-
whitewashed version of history.
But you did that because of a
Whitewash
selfish
version. Here we go.
But a selfish
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
right?
I see what you did there.
exactly.
I was saying that to somebody the
That
other
wasn't
day
intentional.
No.
at work. They had asked why I had done something. I said, every decision I make is a totally selfish one. Now,
it is.
You might see something that I'm doing and go, oh, what a goody-goody. But I'm doing that because I'm getting something from that.
Yeah,
There's always
well,
a
and
selfish need.
People cared about their neighbors back in the day because they needed their neighbors to help them
They
raise their
relied-
cows.
They
Yeah.
relied on
Right?
them.
Yeah.
People
Yes.
had children to
Yes.
like work on the farm. I mean,
Sure.
so I think that there was a higher level of reliance. And now with more money, more things, this bigger, better, faster, more society,
More isolation.
it is like, and what you said
We're
about
getting
like,
deep here, man.
there's
Yeah, man.
always, Shane, you said like something about, I'm always doing it for myself. Like nothing anyone ever does is because of you. It's always because of them. Good
Absolutely.
stuff, bad stuff, it doesn't matter. If I make a decision, I may take a lot of things into consideration, but my response to something is about me.
You're really only on this show for yourself, aren't you?
I'm on the show because I appreciate our partnership and I want to reach populations.
Backpedal.
Well,
It's okay.
No, but that's a good. I mean, that's the point, right?
Humans save themselves first.
But if you can get everybody's interest to align, that's where education comes.
Or mostly aligned.
And
be tolerant of those that don't.
Well, and I really struggle. Like, how will
with tolerance? I struggle with tolerance. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I feel like how will I, a non-gun enthusiast, really be able to connect with people who own guns? Like, it was a really tough thing for me. I'm like, how do I
You're going to use us for that.
I know, but prior to us, like, I really was concerned
and you do need to go, like, by the way, some people that follow this shop other places, go other places, whatever. I don't care. They need to go. That's the thing is you're only talking to people that, not only talking to. The gun world's filled with a bunch of people that shop lots of places. So, whoever's watching, they should go spread that word to, like, you should go try to work with other places.
And I am happy if there's other gun shop owners who want to connect because
our live video ended. Poof.
Well, we're still recording.
That's all right.
I think that one of the biggest the struggles that I have is how do we reach them regularly? Is that how do we train? Ernie and I have talked about a bunch of stuff. Do we train gun shop owners to recognize the signs and symptoms when someone's coming in to buy a gun? If I'm trying to sell someone a big box of ammo and they say I'm only going to need one, well, what do we do about that?
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Or if we're going to shooting ranges, do we do classes at shooting ranges where is there a poster that says, here are the signs and symptoms of suicide? If you're experiencing any of these, give your guns to someone else's store. If you're concerned about a friend, ask them. I mean, I think that there's some of that stuff that matters. So
that talk needs to go on everywhere, yeah. But like you said, we have to make it cool. You got to figure out how you make it cool. All right. So our video died.
Well,
our Facebook Live. We've been kicked off Facebook, haven't we?
There's a couple of different theories about why videos are getting kicked from Facebook.
What's some of them?
Is it me?
No.
It's content.
Yeah.
It's not an open market anymore.
No.
Oh, Jesus. So we talked about guns and suicide, and they shut us down?
Well, I'm not saying that's exactly why it
happened.
happened.
No, I'm not going to say either, but
everything on my end was in the green, and then it stopped. But I mean, I'm still recording, and we're going to upload this full video.
Yeah, this will be on the internet.
It's going to be on YouTube. I'm going to
that would be great,
the whole
so we
video
can post
back
it.
up on
But
Facebook.
That's disappointing. I mean, if that's the reason why it's
a lot
disappointing
in
to me.
our world. The gun world, it happens a lot. So, we said the word gun too many times, and the algorithms kicked us off. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got plenty of power, don't you, Shane?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I knew it could happen. So be it. So, like I said, it's still going to go out. We have more people watch it later than we do live.
Yeah,
that's probably true.
Shane usually gets it up either a day or two later. We post it. We get a lot of people to thousands of views.
If we can beat 2,000 views the first day, I'll be impressed.
So because I'll post it on my page and then
if you can, remember you said the word shitty, so careful.
Oh no,
we can edit that. Remember you said the word.
I'll manage that.
Yeah.
Like if that's the word I said, I'll manage it. But again, how do we have the conversation publicly when stuff like that?
Yeah,
it's just a hard thing
to do. And I don't want to
blame.
I'm glad Shane's actually like our super. I don't know what is our Shane's like. We don't live in an echo chamber thing, right? I like him. He's on the other side. He's super smart. He's not like me. Yeah. But even you worry about was it the content, don't you, Shane? Why did we go away?
I mean, there's a lot of controversy going on YouTube right now. Also, videos getting pulled.
Well, YouTube's factual. They already gave everybody a heads up.
Can we name it something like?
Like what?
I don't know. Do you name the video?
I actually named this video on Facebook as just you and Foundation 2.
Oh God, what does that say about
me? But then again, I've also had people call me on the phone.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a subject, and within 30 seconds, when they're on their computer, ads start coming up on the computer about the things that we just talked about.
Sure. It's all being monitored.
Shit.
No, that's very real, by the way, because
real.
we proved it the other day, and one of my employees did that. Yep, she talked to her mother on the phone. She went and got on Facebook within a couple minutes later, and there was already ads on her thing.
I think that's actually the saddest thing about what could happen in the near future. I think that should be probably a huge discussion and concern, because if you can't have a conversation about what somebody else thinks is taboo, then how do we get better? How do we focus
when there is no First Amendment, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yep. Thought police, right?
Thought police.
All right. Well, what time? 10:44. Do you want to jump out now? Do you have more to say? What do you want to do?
I'm solid. I have to leave here by 11:15.
So
if
okay.
you'll
let you know.
All right.
Okay,
well,
so
then
if you'll let me just hang out and then
you hang out,
jump
you can
in
be reading.
and throw stuff in
So
here.
we're gonna drop some logic bombs. All right. Let's roll over to and thank you very much for participating.
thanks.
It's not like
Yes.
we're gonna. So now you're
No,
gonna be like, what are these guys talking about? What's the most controversial thing all week?
Well, there's 3 things that I
Go.
want to talk about, and all of them can be controversial. Let's talk about Masada you first.
Okay.
Yeah? You want to?
All right. Sure.
So,
He didn't do anything wrong.
right. So,
What
This,
is
this
this?
article right here.
right. So,
Yeah.
Masada Ayub, if you guys don't know, is
Oh, they know. Let's just get into
they
the
may
details.
not know. There may be some people here
Sure.
watching today for the subject we had on
Like
that
all
don't
our
know.
all of
right?
her friends bailed right
Right?
after she's
Yeah, they're like gone.
I'm checking out.
So anyway,
I don't think any of my friends were even watching.
Okay.
he's a legend in the training community.
Sure.
He's been here. You've hosted him.
Sure.
Very well respected. He had a negligent discharge
Sure.
during a class.
You can have a negligent discharge and stay well respected.
You can, unless you don't own it,
Okay.
right? Unless you don't own it.
Do you feel he didn't own it?
I don't. I feel he did not own it.
Do you feel most people now? There's 2 different camps out there, though.
I know.
right.
So kind of set the stage here. He was teaching his Mag 40, which is the second half of the class you
Yeah.
hosted, Mag 20.
Yeah, and we hosted a Mag 40 here once.
Did you? I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Okay, so they're out in the range, and he wanted to, from what I understand, demonstrate trigger
press,
press. And he took a firearm from a student that
Yep.
had supposedly been checked twice already. It was
Sure.
supposed to be a cold range,
Understood.
and he
Finger
checked
guns.
it. He checked it, right? He checked it, supposedly, pointed it in the air, pressed the trigger, and bang, goes
Bang.
off.
Yep.
So
That's not good.
So
Bullets that leave the range are not
you know,
good.
we posted the link to the article he wrote, and
Yeah, I didn't know if everybody could read this, Rob Pincus, but this is instructor Rob Pincus that has, when you send a link and say use this,
yeah,
that is the one everyone can see.
yeah, I
That's
believe
not
so.
his private
Yes.
page.
No,
Right.
it was
Yeah.
the one everybody
It's
could see.
working.
And
I
I
actually
did-
got
and
it
I-
off
yeah.
another page.
Is
Yeah.
Rob local?
No.
Rob is not.
Okay, I was just curious. I'm not familiar.
He's very popular. He's a controversial dude. He's a good guy. We love him, hate him. We have a great relationship. He's going to be here next week teaching some
Next
classes.
month.
Next month.
Next month.
Oh.
Really, it's next 12th
What
and 13th. 2
what
weeks
Rob
from now.
does, and the reason he kind of rubs people the wrong way is he doesn't give a crap about what he says, and he just says what he thinks. And the reason I wanted to post that is he called. So this Masada Ayub is an icon, screwed up, tried to justify what he did, and Rob was like, "No, that's bullshit. You fucked up."
Yep.
Yep.
And
Now we
they're
dropped the F-bomb.
Now, yeah.
Now we just lost the
least
Well,
it
we don't
wasn't
have
me.
any. We don't have any. Now we're off.
Yeah, we're
off
off.
Facebook anyway.
There's no live.
So that's what Ernie said. That there's 2 camps now because we have the hey Masada Ayub can do no wrong.
Yeah, like don't question a legend.
And you know, and the other ones, I'm kind of in
Even
the Pincus,
legends can screw up.
And I'm in the Pincus camp with like, no, dude, you screwed up.
So,
Right.
yeah, I had a talk with a customer in the store the other day. Said, but how do you really feel about it? This, and like, it's quite simple. Hey, I consider Matt's a friend. I like him. I like him and Gail. I'm sure it's caused some controversy for them, and we saw the arguing on here. But how do I feel about it? Is it's wrong. Like we don't do that on a range. There's no point in a gun over a berm. There is no such thing as a cold range, right? We don't have empty guns like.
Yeah, so that's some of the failures or the procedural errors that were trying to be justified. Cold range versus hot range, right?
Yeah.
If you have a quote unquote cold range, I believe, and there's a lot of people that I'm not the only one. It's not an original idea. Believe it breeds complacency.
Yes.
If you're like, oh, that gun's empty because it's well.
So you just sorry.
Yeah,
stupid
no, go
question.
ahead.
Cold,
You
yeah,
ju-
you're
you
right.
just
You're a
assu-
newbie. A
you
cold
just
range.
assume that there's every gun is loaded.
Well, you're not
Well, a
assuming.
cold
You're
range
supposed
is-
to be checking.
Cold
everything.
range is every gun is unloaded. So
Okay.
like
when you're not firing.
when you're not firing, and so you're taking a whole bunch of other people's word for it that they don't have real bullets in their gun, and I don't take people's word for that.
But what that breeds is what you said, where people are assuming that it's unloaded, so they start treating them differently, right? Because intellectually, we're like, people can say treat every gun like it's loaded, but like when you clean it, people don't treat. That's why people shoot themselves when they're cleaning a gun, right?
Right.
Because they're intellectually, they're like, well, I know it's not loaded.
Loaded, yeah.
So that's the problem cold ranges breed. So that's one issue. The other issue is the one that Ernie talked about we don't point guns over a berm because we don't know where that bullet's going to land.
And so when people, even on that article, they said bullshit. So I simply said to a guy the other day, and it's a friend, and he's not a guy that was like, hey, I think you're wrong. I said, you know how easy it is around here to prove two things? Mansell Bridge, okay? Go ask why Mansell Bridge got shut down for the year they redid it. And, hey, go backwards in the news only like 6 or 7 months and look at the kid in Nashua, Iowa, who's in an apple orchard with his parents and catches a bullet from the gun range a half a mile away. Don't shoot bullets if they're going to leave the gun range.
So is the practice still like don't shoot guns, don't point guns at people? Like
we don't. Well, yeah, no. So there's different versions of safety rules, whatever. Our safety rule is to keep the gun pointed in a generally safe direction whenever possible.
Which would not be at a person.
Which would not be at a person.
Okay, I just wanted
to and that's, go ahead. I don't want to.
So those are two failures, and then the other failure, honestly, is, and it's been brought up, he grabbed a student's gun, right?
Yeah.
Right out of the holster. Like I don't generally just go over and grab somebody's gun.
Yeah.
I would.
And maybe it was handed to him. We don't know.
No, I think
we don't know though. What I'm saying is,
I'm pretty sure that they said that he grabbed it.
And
just went over and grabbed it.
All I'm saying is, unless I saw it on a video, I'm not saying to do it.
So, but anyway,
if he did that, not okay.
Not okay. Yeah. So 3 things, right? Safety violations caused this incident to happen. So that could happen. Those things could happen to anybody.
Absolutely.
Right? There, a lot of things leading up to that. There was a lot of people there that were supposed to be checking things. People didn't say anything. So that's the first problem I had. Nobody said anything. That's something we got to. And it kind of goes back to the suicide thing, right?
Yeah, like people, honest conversations.
Like, I don't want to say anything because Ernie's my friend, but he just did something incredibly dangerous. But it didn't hurt anybody, so I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
Instead, you say, Ernie, that really could have hurt somebody. Yeah. Why are you doing it that way? That's not how we've been taught.
Right, exactly. And then the other thing that I kind of have a problem with is he's trying to justify it.
Yeah.
Is that an ego thing, you think? Like, is he like, gosh, I look bad anyway. If I can just say, like, no, I was doing everything right, then I won't have as much, like, fallout?
Right, I believe
it's go back live
and I can't.
No?
And I can't.
Shane, quit talking.
What's that?
Are you making us go back live again?
Am I making you go back live?
No, are we going back? No.
I can't say that because I can't speak for him. But I think if it was me, probably yes. Right? You don't want to lose that status.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in the industry for 40 years. He's written books that people quote in classes, and he doesn't want to look like an idiot.
So you think if he were to say, like, I screwed up, like, I just lapsed in judgment, my bad, you feel like that would have gone over better?
I think that, and I think if he would have said something like, our safety procedures failed, which he did say, but he didn't say the procedures were incorrect. He said they failed because they weren't applied correctly. I think if he would say, like, hey, we need to look at our safety procedures, period. Like, do a revamp, right?
Sure.
I think that would have went over better. But like you said, there's people in the other side that are like, he didn't do anything wrong, right?
Yeah.
So.
Isn't what he said... he had some.
What prevented tragedy was layer 5, the gun pointed skyward.
Yes,
that's the
5.
big statement right there.
But that's not true. What prevented tragedy was the luck that it didn't hit anybody when it came down.
Yes.
So that is a BS statement right there.
And that's what Rob's, I think, big thing was.
Yeah.
Like Rob said,
trying to justify it.
Unless you went and searched all 200 acres you're on, how do you know that? I think Rob's statement was, how do you not know there's a turkey hunter bleeding out leaning against a tree somewhere?
Right now.
That you never knew was there because they're way off the range where the bullets fell. So, yeah, have a safe backstop. Don't point a gun in generally safe direction whenever possible. Point those directions out before class, right?
Yeah. And I just think that this incident goes to show, it's a good teaching point for the community as a whole. We have to quit justifying crap that's wrong.
Sure.
Because of ego.
Yeah.
Do you feel like law enforcement, the reason I'm saying that is it sounds like that.
Oh, wait a minute. She's a mole. Go ahead.
No, but that sounds like a conversation that I think a lot of people have about law enforcement as a collective, that there are some officers that are just maybe not good officers or behave a certain way, but the law enforcement entity as a whole is like,
oh, it's been
every officer is a good officer.
People don't want to call people out.
Yeah, and so that's your comment. I don't have a perspective on that. I just know that that's something that's been said where it's like, all officers are good officers and they stand by their peers.
Sure.
and it sounds similar. Like sometimes you just need
I think people say that, kind of go on a tangent. I think people say that, and in this case too, because like personally, I get upset when people paint with a broad brush. Why does it have to be all officers are good officers or all officers are bad officers? Why can't it be reality, which is most people are good people, but there's a few bad apples, right?
Like society does not, we don't take society and then they go into the professional field of being a police officer, and it's the same crosscut of like humans that you get in different
I always tell my
professions.
kids, I used to tell my kids, speaking of parenting, and I used to tell my employees when I used to manage quite a few employees and et cetera, that I personally don't believe that anybody comes to work or gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to do a bad job at life today.
No.
Everybody tries to do their best, and sometimes their best sucks.
Right.
But everybody's trying to do their best.
Yeah, benefit of the doubt really matters. Yeah. Sorry to jump in.
No.
So long story short, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I just wanted to bring that up for conversation.
His safety procedures failed. I wouldn't have those safety procedures. Don't point guns off the range. Don't ever believe the gun's unloaded unless.
And I just think the point to be made is the fact that people are
justifying it.
Justifying.
Sure. And there's people not though.
And there's people that.
And now there's a bunch of hate in between.
Yeah, and we don't have to have hate, but we do need to call each other out.
Yeah.
Because
this is where people say this is where we agree to disagree. No, not about safety.
Well, and I feel like it's like with my kids. So let's say my kids are playing together and they beat the crap out of each other and they're like, he started it. And the conversation I have with them is, it's not a did you do this or did you didn't. It's a if you did this, it's not okay. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes that gets lost in like societal conversations like this. Like if he did those things, everyone can agree shouldn't have done them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what he said.
I really think it all would have went away if he just said, I screwed up.
Yeah, and I think everybody can agree that things were missed, but to look at what happened and to improve and go forward and make things better, you have to admit that the process is flawed and fix the process.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think that there's some reluctance to do that on some people's parts.
Shame on them.
Shame on them.
Yeah.
Is there ever a good reason to have a cold range?
I don't believe so.
No. Well,
but I mean, it's pretty common. I mean,
I had somebody point out that they didn't like the fact we didn't do that, but
yeah, we run a hot range, and I say that right at the beginning of the day. I say once we load, unless we take a long break for lunch or whatever, we're loaded always.
Yeah.
But then we have some administrative rules. For instance, no guns come out of holsters unless I tell you. I don't want to hear anybody messing with their gun unless I tell you. And takes two people. That's another thing that didn't happen in this instance. It takes at least two people to declare a firearm clear, like me and somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. I need to look at mine, and then I need to show it to somebody else. Right. And we both agree. And usually in practice, we usually have like three people.
Yeah. Show it to your neighbor. Look at it yourself. Show it to your neighbor, and then me and Mike come down the line, make sure it's empty. So. And then still, are you allowed to point it at your neighbor?
No.
No.
Then you put it back in the holster and you leave it there till I tell you to take it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you've went through class, and like that. And I'm not trying to prep you, but at the very end of it, what I liked, like in the debrief, is I wanted to ask you, especially since you had a young relative that you care about there, and it's like, did you feel safe at all times? Yeah. And that's a huge thing. Like we talk about, because we need you to feel safe so you can learn. You get that, and we need you to feel safe, as in we need you to actually be safe. I don't want bullet holes in any student.
Right.
So.
And one of the things that just from the job that I have, the very first thing is treat a gun as if it is always loaded. And this situation reminds me of, whether it was urban legend or not, but the power company changed how it did its work on power lines because they were having so many electrocutions decades ago, because they had it in their procedures, de-energize the line, go up on your bucket lift, and then do your X, Y, and Z of your checklist.
Yeah.
And because they were having so many electrocutions, they said, that's it. All work will be done with the line hot. That way there is no idea of, well, is it de-energized?
Do we know? Do we not know?
Do we not know?
Yeah.
Nope. It's always hot. So therefore we have to act as if it. That's why I asked, is there a good reason? Is there a real good reason on why we have cold ranges?
No. There's no.
Yeah, I don't believe there is.
I don't believe there is.
I think honestly, and once again, Masad Ayub is a legend, and he's a very smart guy, and he's the subject matter expert on a lot of things. Witness, blah, 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 all the things. I do, and I've said this to you. I said it after the class, when I took to his class and everything, I think some of his material is outdated and needs to be updated. And running a cold range is 1970s procedures. It's 2018. We need to bump it up a little
Well,
bit.
it's kind of like, you come to a class to learn how to run a gun, right? So the only way to actually make you learn how to safely handle and use a real firearm is to be using a real firearm with bullets in it. And that's where, and like Mike said is, we can say things like the NRA, and I'm not picking on the NRA, but the famous, here's the NRA 4 safety rules, right? Well, treat as all guns if they're loaded. We simply don't ever do that. You're willing to take the magazine out of your gun, rack the slide several times. Yes, you literally know it's unloaded. But are you going to pull the trigger on it because you have to disassemble it? Yeah. So you did point a gun inside your house and pull the trigger. Would you do that if it was loaded? Hell no, you wouldn't. But did you just treat it like it was, loaded? So, what I mean is we can't really say, sure. It's just one of those things to where it can't, the NRA's rules need to come up to date too. I get the general, and we've had some people, other instructors who joined us for a class, that they were bothered we didn't go over the 4 firearm safety rules. Like literally as in word for word the way the NRA says it. And I'm like, did you listen to our safety instructions? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, can you find anywhere in there that what I said doesn't cover everything they say and actually more? But it's because literally the verbiage wasn't used in the number 1 and the number 2. Sure. When I say keep a firearm, today you're going to keep your firearm pointed in a generally safe direction whenever possible. And the generally safe direction today is that berm, not over it, that berm or into the ground here. And I say whenever possible because if the new lady trips and falls and her gun points at Mike for a second and she's embarrassed and gets up, she didn't mean to point it at Mike. I'm not going to tell you when you fall, you absolutely can't point it at somebody. I understand you would do that if you could, but we make mistakes. We're humans. You trip, you do whatever. But
well, more realistically, when you're reholstering, is that a safe direction?
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah. You're covering a part of your body when you reholster.
Yeah, you shouldn't be, but people do. I get it.
You are. You have to.
Well, yeah.
You have to.
Here's the issue we have with people is like I've had instructors who said you should teach people with unloaded guns first. And I'm like, what's that teach them? It doesn't teach them what the gun feels like when it goes bang. It doesn't teach them. And I agree with Mike that if you truly know a gun's unloaded, or remember you believed it was, you're going to treat it differently.
Not handling guns a lot.
Yeah.
I would feel more comfortable, just as me, and I'm my own person, I would feel more comfortable handling an unloaded gun, knowing it's unloaded, just to get comfortable with, like, the parts and what it looks like and
that part, yes.
What it does, like, just kind
sure.
of. Now,
that's you in my store, though, learning about guns as in, does this fit your hand? Does that fit your hand? Or, Emily, this is called a slide, and this is called a magazine.
That's fair.
So, yes, we're talking about when you're at a class where we're going to learn how to shoot guns, and we're out on a gun range. No, all guns are real, and they're loaded. And,
that's probably the safest way to keep everyone whole.
But, yeah, handling firearms, saying, does this fit? Does that fit? Or let's talk about this gun today. Granted, yes, that's all done with an unloaded gun. Absolutely. But I'm still not going to say, well, look, it's unloaded, so I can point it at you.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
No.
Do you think anything positive can come from this? Because one of the previous podcasts we've had, we talked about close calls.
Sure.
Like the best learning tool is a close call.
Well, I think it brings a huge light to a very famous person that has a huge following to where everybody can say, why does Rob Pincus and these other people think that his safety procedures failed? And they did. So
I think it's going to spark a discussion. Now, historically, like Ernie said, it's going to end up being like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, on one side, and the other side is going to be like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Like, I don't know why, but hopefully there'll be some people in the middle.
Yeah,
right?
Hopefully he himself might change the way he does things.
I think he will.
And he doesn't have, he's a legend, and I love him, and he's a great guy, but he doesn't have as many students on the range as other people to where, does he still need to change his ways? Yes. But can this be a broader conversation that affects more instructors out there that have hundreds of people a year, hundreds and hundreds on the range? Yeah, or if not thousands. So, I think a lot of good can come from it, depending on how it's handled. it's when I say it's no big deal to me, as in all I can do is affect the students I spend time with on the range and the fellow instructors. You and I hold each other accountable and keep people safe, right?
Right.
So that's all we can really do. So, what else you want to talk about?
I don't really think we have time to talk. We can talk about the other two
subjects.
Minutes.
You have 10 minutes.
About 5.
How many minutes does he have?
It's 11:05.
Yeah.
I don't think we can get into the subjects I want to talk about and give them the depth of conversation that I wanted.
Well, when are we going to come back again? We should decide that. We should just talk like we're not live on the air.
As soon
as possible.
We really do need to talk about that. So, all right then fine. We'll cut it 10 minutes short, and we'll just do it while Emily's here so we can say thank you. And really, seriously, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm still going to make you come to a class. I'm going to make you meet gun people and learn about stuff so you'll talk to them. Actually, you can use me to talk to them.
Well, I appreciate the partnership and the opportunity to connect with a group of people that I'm not sure I would have been able to do that with.
We will. And it'll be good. It'll be exciting how like a day later we're all like, how many views do we have, right? We're like we're like teenage girls, right?
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very happy if this goes out to 1,000 or 2,000 people in the next 48 hours.
Well, and that would be my plea. Like if I were given, an opportunity to say one last thing, honestly, it's just, store your gun safely. Gun safes, I understand, they may cost money. They cost a hell of a lot less than people that you care about dying.
Sure.
And if you're responsible enough to own a gun, be responsible enough to store it safely, damn it.
I agree. Touche.
And
Mike,
if you need
got
any
anything
help,
you want to? Yeah.
if you need any help, that number has been on the screen for the majority of the show, 1-800-332-4224.
Yes, our crisis line. People 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Call it.
365 days a year. If you're running into, issues living with mental health or just whatever's going on with you is just outside of coping mechanisms that have worked in the past and now you just kind of feel like you can't figure it out, let our staff help. They're paid, they're trained, they're highly experienced, and they're literally waiting for you to call to be able to provide you some guidance. So,
Well, it does happen around here.
It does.
There'll be people that need it. Anything else you want to add then, Mike?
No, sir.
So we'll just Shane, anything? Do you want to say goodbye to the people, or should I just, are we good to go?
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, the Facebook Live show
we did a horrible.
Unexpectedly.
Yes, Facebook Live ended unexpectedly because, I don't know, Skynet. I'm going to say Skynet did it. One thing I should do, I should remind people we're a business, right?
You should.
You have medical class on July 8th.
Yeah, but before that.
Yeah, I know.
Like next weekend.
Well, like in 2 days, you have shooting over at Searsboro, which is weird. It's almost all full.
Oh, crap.
June
So
9th
it is 2 days.
June 9th is sold out. It's filled.
So
yeah.
June 2nd, June 9th.
June 2nd has availability at the Brownells Range for one-day IDS. Intuitive Defensive Shooting. Look at that. We're getting better at it.
All right.
Other than that, we'll have another podcast before everything else to tell everybody about.
All right.
Oh, wait. Nope. Hey, no. Rob Pincus is here on June 12th, June 14th at Northland. If you want to come train with Rob Pincus, do so. You sign up through icetraining.us. And on June 13th at Northland Fishing Game, while Rob Pincus is in town, we're going to have a trap shooting get-together, fun gig, and it's all fundraising for the youth shooting sports at Northland Fish Game. And we're grilling out, and we're probably going to give away a prize. So if you know me, I have awesome prizes. So I hope you join us. Think about joining that. Come shooting some trap, and we'll go home and create that Facebook event so it can be up and running today. Anything else you need to do?
No, sir.
Nothing?
Nope.
Emily, thank you very much again.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll have you back again. She's already on her phone answering people.
Yeah.
Did you say shitty?
No.
Did you say that 3 times?
No, not at all.
Shane, thanks for your technical help.
You bet, buddy.
We got to do this as many times as we can before you go away and make me cry. All right. And for the rest of you, thanks for joining. As always, watch out for the red Chevy truck.
Peace out.
Peace out.